The Cerebral Entertainment Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to yet another riveting edition of the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast. I am James, and with me, as always, is my good friend Colt.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Do you like this cup?
It's huge. I do.
This is Morphogen Nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Our good friend Austin Stout is part of that company. I need to find out how.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact, like how exactly, but I have bought quite a few supplements from there, and I'm enjoying them.
Yeah? Good.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
They're supplementing you.
They are.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Austin Stout. I was talking about him with my nephew just yesterday because my nephew was talking about how he likes to watch guys on the social medias, on the internet in general, because we were talking about John Meadows, because he was a fan of John Meadows.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how we like hearing guys who get a little scientific with it. Now, Austin, if you let him, he'll get very scientific with it. Like, I'm like, what? I have no idea what you just said, dude. It sounds really smart. But he's also very good about breaking it down.
Yes.
And he gets into very plain terms. If you have not listened to Austin Stout or checked him out on the socials, saw any of his videos, the dude works out in a barn like Rocky IV. It's insane. And he's
in
huge.
Ohio.
Yeah. Where it's cold.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot colder than it is here most of the time. And he's huge, and he's also super smart. So be sure to check out Austin Stout.
We've had him on, was he on the show like twice, and then we did the series with him too?
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And be looking forward to having him on again, because it's
Absolutely.
always a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Because he does very well on the show. But yeah, Morphogen Nutrition.
Yep.
Yeah. Check them out too while you're at it.
Absolutely.
Colt's enjoying the supplementation thus far. Right.
I am. And then, which is a good thing, because we're getting ready to ramp up stuff in the gym here. Kind of started Friday. Today's Sunday.
Yes.
So kind of started 2 days ago. We probably sound like up and down gym goers, don't you think? Like, because we'll be in here like, 1 week, talk about how we're hitting the gym hard, and then, a couple weeks later we're like, well, it's been a crappy couple of weeks. But we literally told each other, I don't know, probably 2 months ago.
At least.
I guess it was probably right before I went out on paternity leave. And we talked about it, like once I can get my schedule back in tune and we can get things going, we're going to get a dedicated schedule going. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're in there.
Yeah.
Push, pull legs, and we're going to do that every week, and we're going to make sure we're increasing each week. We're going to get our diets on track. We're going to get our cardio on track, all that kind of stuff. And we've started a pretty good path. I mean, I'm fucking juicing celery, dude.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Actually, it's not bad. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
I've never been a big celery guy. But if you mix the right things, the right healthy things into it, it's actually not bad.
I can imagine. I mean, you can mix just about anything with something else and make it not quite so bad.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned to you yesterday, I believe it was, celery it pretty much just tastes like grass. So it's not like it has a terrible taste.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have much of a taste at all. And it tastes green. That's I think if there's ever a taste of green, it's like celery. It tastes green.
Yeah, like the taste of purple for Kool-Aid or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not grape, it's purple.
I know. There was a meme. I suppose that I assume that you're referring to that meme. Have you seen that meme?
Probably.
Where it says, grape soda doesn't taste like grapes, but it sure tastes like purple.
Yeah.
That's nothing hit me so hard as that meme did.
You know
right
what
then.
hit me hard, though? What I heard the other day is that sparkling water tastes like TV static.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
That's legit right there.
It's legit. These people, I don't know what they're using to come to these conclusions, but I want some because that's awesome.
Yeah.
But getting back into the gym discussion, it's like, if you are just like listening to us, especially just like more recently, then yeah, we're going to sound like on again, off again. But if you listen to us like you alluded to, it was at least 2 months prior where we were talking and kind of spoke of an actual timeline. A little microphone malfunction there.
Uh-oh.
Spoke of a timeline where we're like, okay, as soon as Marshall's born, we're going to, work. It's going to be a while. We're going to work on slowly getting back into the gym, getting our schedule going. But as a matter of fact, I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, really.
A little bit, yeah.
Because we talked about, fall-ish, really getting back into the routine, and then, really starting to just, start hitting it heavy into the winter and through the winter. So it's not even really. Is it fall yet? Like technically,
I
did
think
fall
so.
happen?
I think it was last week.
Yeah, I don't do that. I
happened?
don't keep up with seasons, but
I think, and it may just be because I've been thinking about it this year, but it feels like this year, out of most years for me, what the transition from summer to fall like actually happened. Like that's what it feels like outside when it became fall.
Yeah.
Like it was summer up until 2 weeks ago, and it was still like 85, 90 degrees outside, and then all of a sudden cooler temperatures kind of started peeping through, and you start seeing some leaves starting to fall and everything, and then it actually turns fall.
right.
I don't know, it's just weird. Like normally it could be fall for a little while and still have 80-degree weather outside, but we're not doing that. Like today outside is perfect.
It is. It's
like-
it's fall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. You could wear long sleeves out there today and be okay.
Yeah.
You don't need them. It's
Right.
not necessary, but it would like be okay. So we're in that transitional.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. It was like summer and then bam, it's fall.
Right.
Seasonally. Like, sometimes we'll have summer into October.
Right.
Early October. It'll still be like hot and you're wearing cut off breeches.
Yeah. Well, that's
like
what
with Daisy Dukes.
That's what we get for living in Missouri, man. You never know what's going to happen. That's why, the Tough Mudder, I did one like 6 years ago, and we did it in Nashville. Well, Missouri always has one. I think they may have changed it up recently, but it was always in October. And I'm like, there's one obstacle in the Tough Mudder that keeps me from ever doing Missouri Tough Mudder, and that is the Arctic Enema, where you slide down into an ice bath.
Yeah.
You don't know, because you have to sign up for these things like way earlier in the year. You don't know what the temperature is going to be like outside to do this in October in Missouri. It could be 80 degrees outside and be phenomenal, or it could be 60 degrees outside and you have to slide into an ice bath halfway through a 10-mile obstacle course. Not fun. I'm not doing it.
So they call it the Arctic Enema.
They do.
So I wonder if one typically defecates oneself.
I didn't in Nashville.
You may in Missouri, though.
I might. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting concept to have a bunch of people. It's the Tough Mudder, though. So if you do poop yourself, nobody's really going to know.
Well, and you're muddy the most of
Exactly.
the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally the first obstacle you come to, you run for like a mile, and then you come to the first obstacle, and it's literally just these huge. I think it's like 4 mud pits that are probably like longer than this room, and it's just a big hole that's got water about waist height in it. So your goal is your whole team jumps down in it. Then you have a few guys that climb up to the top of the next one, and then they help pull their people up, and then you jump down into another one. And then you go, it's like 4 of those. And that's the beginning of the course. That's at 1 mile in, and you still have 9 miles to go.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
And you complain about wet socks on the disc golf course.
I know. Dude, you have no idea. Because whenever you get to the end, you just want to sit down. You just want to hang out and chill. By the time you get back to like your hotel room and you try to pull those socks off, because I wore like long Under Armour socks, like knee-high socks. It felt like it was ripping every hair out of my legs trying to pull those socks off.
Yeah.
Because it was just dried mud on my legs. And I swear we took like 3 showers, and I could still take a towel through my hair and get dirt or mud in my hair.
You don't hose off on site, though? They don't have like a...
Well, I mean, maybe they do. I don't know.
Y'all didn't?
No, we didn't.
Wow.
I just feel sorry for the hotel staff who had to clean the bathroom
That's
at
what I was
the end of
thinking,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it was just towels on the floor that would look like somebody had a very disastrous Taco Bell run or
Yes,
something.
right. And especially like the washcloths and whatnot.
And
It's
the
like,
shower.
These people.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to clean up the shower as good as we could, but it still wasn't fantastic.
The poor maid staff there,
Uh-huh.
man. I feel bad.
Yeah. We left
So-
them a good tip, though.
I would hope so. Hopefully some new towel money.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, getting back to the gym thing, I'm excited to get in there and really focus on it. Like I was telling you before, my wife went and got a grocery order earlier today, and it's got a bunch of stuff in it that I'm gonna make. Like this morning for breakfast, I started with 93.7 hamburger mixed in with some eggs and some spinach, threw in some pepperoni, a little bit of ranch seasoning on top, and demolished that with some juiced celery on top of that, and all my supplements from Morphogen, and I feel pretty good today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to start the day. I have to get myself into that that swing. And then once I'm there, I'm like motivated. Like, you're not going to get me to miss a day unless something tragic happens.
Once you get back into that routine, missing a day feels like tearing away from your firstborn child or something. It's difficult. Getting back into the routine, sometimes a little difficult. And for me, it's not like oh man, I don't feel like going to the gym and exerting myself, because I'm just so lazy now. It's actually the restructuring of the schedule. That's the biggest thing for me, because it's all about like setting aside time for this and time for that. When you've got kids, you've got jobs, you've got podcasts, you've got, these things that you are your responsibilities in life. Scheduling is like having that routine is the only thing that you can do. It's the only way to fulfill all the responsibilities, all the things that you want to do in life. Because if you don't have a set routine, then you're spinning your wheel. I'm spinning my wheels. Maybe some people can do it. I think most people probably can't without a set routine, and you got to stick to that routine.
I've got to have a mixture of both. Like, I've got to have a few days throughout the week where if somebody says, "Hey, what do you got going on this week?" I'm like, I don't really know. I'll have to get back to you on that. I need a few days of having that just in case. But I've got my 3 or 4 days a week where you ask me what I'm doing those days. Oh, I've got the gym or I've got to work this time. I got the gym at this time. I got a podcast at this time. Like, I need those 3 or 4 days where that's solidified. Like, there's nothing, if I'm doing anything outside of that, it's got to be outside of that. I'm not moving anything or shifting any of those things unless I absolutely have to.
I guess for me, it's because I still have to include things like work, of course, and that fluctuates sometimes because just like last week, I got a call to go to a facility in St. Louis. They were having an issue. I needed to go up and do some kind of emergency training, so I got that done. Didn't see that one coming. They called me one day. I was up there the next day. So work is kind of fluid as far as the actual tasks that I do. But like I work typically 5 days per week, right? Come home on those days when the kids are in school. I have homework to do with them, and the household chores don't go anywhere. So you still got all that stuff. That's my day, 5 days per week. Then on Fridays, of course, throw in the gym time. So I go to work, come home, go to the gym, and go home, do my thing. Saturday we have gym time, right? So then Saturdays, aside from that, after our morning gym time, there's a little fluidity there. So if there's something to do, then Sunday, got my same routine. So it's just like, I have to stick to that routine or else life is chaos for me.
Right.
Like for instance, if we were just saying, well, let's try to hit the gym 3 days this week. Okay, what days you want to do? I don't know. Let me see what's on my schedule. Let me see how things go. That's a recipe for disaster, right?
It just makes it so easy to push that off to do something else or something.
It just happens. It seems like it just happens. Like you have to prioritize the things that you want to make sure that you get done. If you don't prioritize it, if you just kind of do let's see how it goes. I think, once again, at least for most people, it's definitely this way for me. It leaves so much room for deviation and for chaos, according to, as far as the schedule is concerned.
Right.
So
I think Saturdays are going to be our favorite one, though, not because of what body part we're doing or anything like that, but just because we're knocking it out early in the morning, and it has multiple positives to that. Because one, you're getting it done early in the morning, so you have the rest of the day to do whatever you want. But two, you're starting out the day on a good note. And it's a Saturday morning, so you're kind of forcing yourself to get up a little bit earlier, not letting yourself sleep in until 10:30, 11 o'clock or something like that.
I'm kind of angry about that part, but anyway.
Well, give it a couple of weeks. Maybe you'll get used to it.
I will. I'm just saying, though, it's the only day that I have to do that. So it's taken the only day that I have to, just not.
Well, I'm not saying
up.
we're getting in there at 5 a.m. I mean, it's
No,
still
we're
like
not.
9 a.m., but
It is,
still,
yeah.
it's early enough to where, you can get up, have some breakfast and some coffee, hit the gym hard, and then you have the rest of the day to kind of do what you
absolutely
what you want to do.
No, it's a good thing. It's just that I fight against it because, it's my one day that I have, but still have the day that I'd like to chill, for the most part and get stuff done. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that my laziness, if you want to call it that, for that one day fights against it. But I would rather, as far as that goes too, when looking at my schedule, because we could get together and say, well, let's move that to Saturday evening instead, and that's a terrible idea. I already know this, because on a Saturday you definitely want to get something like that done and over with, so you can have the rest of your day to, kind of let the fluidity of life take its toll.
Right.
Or you might, I might be going out of town or something for that day, or whatever, going to do something that night, and so you want to make sure you have that little bit of leeway in your schedule. Because the other times that we have, it's kind of weird. We have Friday evening, early evening, because it's after work. We have Saturday morning, then we have Sunday afternoon. But it's just the way that life is allowing us to have that. But it's still routine, though. It's still scheduled. So we can stick to that routine. And even though it's at 3 different times of each respective day, it still works out for those days the best, I think, that we can make it happen.
Yep.
In a perfect world, like I used to, for a while, I was getting up super early and working out before work every day. That, like you were saying, you have time maybe, that early. Breakfast is forced, coffee's a must, some kind of energy drink or something, but you get it out of the way, and the rest of the day, and plus you feel better. I always feel better when I work out first thing in the morning.
Right.
One day I aspire to get back to that point. I really do, but man, it's tough because I am not an early morning person.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a little easier for you, I think, because I still, I'm work at 5 o'clock every morning.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So for me to be able to knock out an hour in the gym, because you're talking about at least an hour to get up, get ready. Yeah. And then you need the hour of being in the gym plus travel time. Then you need the time of getting ready for work while you're at the gym, and then the travel time from there to work. Yeah. I've done it before.
I remember, but it was like you were in bed by like 6.
I mean, I used to do it back when I worked up in Imperial. And so I would have to be at the gym at 2:30 every morning. And to lift for like an hour, and then I had to drive 45 minutes to work, and it was
that's insane.
It was a mess, but
that's not functional for, I don't think, unless you're just some crazy weirdo that likes to get up at 2 o'clock.
It feels good for like the early part of the day, but after that you just start crashing hard, and when you still have a good travel time home and everything like that too, it's just so easy to start your eyes getting heavy while you're driving home and all that kind of stuff. It just gets into
I don't like being that dog tired in the evenings though. Like there's a happy medium, because I used to do all kinds of manual physical labor, and some of those you worked long days, you worked 12-hour days. You come home and you were lucky to get something to eat before you crashed out, because you had to get up and do it again the next day. Right. That's a little much for me. I mean, I like getting good sleep, but that's taking it overboard.
Yeah. Well, I would rather have my evenings than my mornings, anyways. I would rather I would rather not have to be in bed by 6 o'clock in the afternoon. To get up at 2:30. I would rather do the gym in the afternoon, but still have enough time to wind down to where I still get enough good sleep before getting up to go to work the next day. So
saying I don't have to be at work till 8ish.
Yeah,
I can stroll in at 8 and still have a full day. So I would be okay with getting up at 6. Right, that would be easy. Get in the gym for an hour. The only thing that sucks, you got to take a shower there. That kind of, it's kind of a pain in the butt. But I had a locker there at the gym when I did that, so just kept everything in my locker. It helped out a lot.
Oh, you weren't one of the guys that just left your underwear on the floor? And...
I don't think so. I can't make any promises, but that was funny. What was funny is at first we saw the underwear there by the shower, but then they had moved over by the sink. So somebody had actually moved the underwear, but didn't throw them away or claim them.
Right. I don't know. That's something we talked about yesterday while we were at the gym, is that there was a sign up above the urinal saying that the urinal was out of order. And then I guess people were still throwing stuff in it or still peeing in it.
Probably still peeing in it.
And then the management of the gym wrote more on that letter that said, what part of out of order do you not understand?
Well, he got a whole new piece of paper.
He did?
And taped it below the existing piece of paper. Okay. And it was hanging actually into the urinal. Like the first one was hanging up by the flusher, the handle up top. The second one he wrote was another separate piece of paper, and he taped it right to the top of the urinal. It was hanging down. So if you were going to pee in it, you'd have to pee on the sign saying what part of out of order do you not understand.
And then guess what happened? They peed on it.
Somebody peed on it.
The last time I seen it, it was in the urinal with pee surrounding it.
Yes.
I don't, in the sense of it being funny a little bit, okay.
I'm going to laugh.
But if I'm managing a gym,
I'm not laughing.
I'm not laughing, for one. And for two, you're paying a membership.
Right.
Right? Why do you want to pay a membership to go somewhere that's crappy, you know, and then like I told you earlier too, that's probably also the same person who complains that the gym's nasty in the bathrooms or something along those lines. Like it's not, the most part it's not.
No, it's not.
It's pretty clean. And you know, you see them vacuuming and mopping all the time and all that kind of stuff. But those are the same people who are complaining about the gym being dirty or something like that. When you're the one that's peeing all over stuff and, you know, it's just...
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same douchebags that are just complaining about anything, and they're just generally douchebags. You know, a douchebag is a douchebag. And so...
I think you have to add another one of those in there. A douchebag is a douchebag is a douchebag.
For these guys, you're right, because they are that big of douchebags. But, no, I agree, and I think when you have a membership at a place like that, not just that, but it does kind of irk me when people don't put the plates back where they belong, you know? I've seen some people do it, and I've probably been guilty of it myself, but it's because I might have forgotten, or I might have like went to go get the stuff to clean it, and somebody else jumped on it, and so I was like, oh, well, they know what they're doing, so they wanted to get the machine quickly enough. Okay, well, they took it over, so not really my responsibility anymore. But I've also seen other people do it, and it's the same douchebags, dude. It's the same ones who they don't care. They act like they own the place. They're probably the ones complaining about other things, and they just don't feel like it's like they're entitled. They don't feel like they have to move the plates back over because
You know what though, and I'm not saying this is right, but in that same vein, I think if you're paying a membership to go to a gym, if it's me and you, we're still putting our weights away, but I could see somebody justifying thinking they can leave their weights on it, that management or that somebody that works at the gym is going to take it off and put it where it needs to go. I can see that better than the bathroom thing.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because the bathroom thing is strictly unnecessary. Yeah. It's because the plates you're using the machine. You thought it was funny to pee on the sign. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think the same thing. I wouldn't do it. But I was just like, it would be funny if, just peed all over that sign because it's sitting right there in the stream, the line of fire, if someone were peeing. Anyway, but still, yet they're not, and maybe they are thinking management will move it, but it's not management that's going to move it. Typically, it's other people, right? Other people who are paying the same price for the membership as you are, right? But you're too entitled because you got whatever that you have to do, right? So other people, it might be people who don't have a lot of strength, it might be people who are trying to work their way into building a better body, and they're not going to use these big 35-pound plates. Now they got to move 4 of them or 6 if it's on the leg press because you decided you didn't want to take them off, right? And that's where it's just a general inconsiderate air about those folks, like they're entitled, right? But I see your point that it's different than the urinal thing, but just the douchebaggery, I think is the correlation that I was kind of going down. But at any rate, I am also very excited about being in the gym, other than my elbow. Yeah. But I couldn't do the curls yesterday when we were trying to do like very light dumbbell curls. I couldn't even get my arm probably past, I don't know, a third of the way up. So I had to go way down even further in weight. But I woke up this morning, and unless I extend it like this, it doesn't really hurt.
That's good.
And so that's an improvement for me. Yeah. So hopefully I don't know. I hope that it's healing. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. But having an elbow injury like that, and I knew when I first started back in the gym several years ago now, I was taking it very slowly. I want to take it very slowly because I did not want to get injured, and it took me this long to injure myself. Yeah. And I think it was kind of a freak thing, but I also think it was just overuse because I was in the gym a lot, playing disc golf a lot, maybe not getting as much rest as what I should have at that time. I don't remember, but.
Well, didn't it happen when we were doing bicep curls?
It did. Preacher curls.
That's what aggravated it. Yeah. Which is kind of an awkward, the way we were doing it was kind of awkward. Not that it's an unsafe way to do it or a wrong way to do it. It's just, it's kind of awkward on that particular pad because that pad's not wide enough. It's not like when you do them, your elbows normally kind of hang off. And I think it was just a matter of, I don't know, it's just awkward.
In my form, I remember correcting my form this particular time. I remember correcting my form after I had kind of felt that stress on my elbow. And once I corrected my form, it felt good again. So I think my form was a little bit off too when I did it. Yeah. And that's probably your number one reason for injuries, I'm sure. Yeah. Is bad form, and then trying to overdo it. So.
Yeah, I don't remember what the weight was that we were using too, but that's another one of those things that John Meadows always preached too. when it comes to bicep curls, he never did like 4 to 6 reps to failure kind of stuff. It was always 12 to 15 reps and stuff like that. He always preached, the more blood flow you can get into the bicep and the higher reps, that's what you're going to get, most growth out of. And especially for older guys, you're just asking to hurt yourself if you're just trying to push as much heavy weight as you can.
Yeah, thanks for calling me out there, by the way.
You're welcome. Well, I mean, it's just I don't feel like I get good enough contractions out of using heavy weight anyways.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it takes more than just your biceps to be able to pull it up. When you're using too heavy weight.
That's a very good
too.
point.
So,
you have to lean your back a lot of times to even get the weight up. I've seen a lot of people do that in the gym.
Yeah. I would rather see somebody do, say you're doing preacher curls. I would rather see somebody do a lighter weight that they can do 10 to 12 reps on, and then have a partner who just holds a hand on it to where it adds a little extra tension to it.
Yeah.
As they're trying to do the curl, than to try to throw 45s on both sides of the bar and try and just have the crappiest form trying to get it get it up. So
right. And one final note on that, I do find a lot of benefit for myself also in using the machine, the cable, for bicep curls as well.
Yeah.
Because of the way that you can kind of lean your body back and keep your body straight, so that you're not using your back to leverage the weight and just use your arms. But that kind of form, it feels pretty fluid for me. It feels pretty smooth. And so I also find a lot of benefit in doing that. I know it's typically easier to use cable weights because it's not the same as using free weights.
Right.
I don't think you get quite as good of a workout in general, but for those bicep curls, I find a lot of benefit in that.
Well, we'll probably at some point too dive in a little bit into band work. So even even doing preacher curls and stuff like that, you can take a band and maybe wrap it around a 45-pound plate and put it on the ground, and then wrap the other side around the bar. That way it stabilizes the bar a little more, but also the higher you raise it, the more tension you've got on it, and then it loosens as you lower it back down.
Yeah.
And you can do that on anything. You do that on a leg press. You can do it on pretty much anything. They scare me because I seen one snap on somebody one time, and I seen the whelp that it left on, and it was not pretty.
Yeah, and especially if you're using it for tension on a bar and you're going up with the bar like this, and if it snaps, that bar is going to knock you in the face.
Right.
And that would be even worse than the whelp that the actual band would leave. I think
Yeah.
if it caught you square in the nose, that would really suck.
Yeah.
And so it's funny though. I've been seeing several posts lately. I don't know what's going on exactly. I know the last episode we talked about, or that we dropped. We talked about Schwarzenegger and the Redcon and all of that. And it's funny because they held Arnold responsible for his comments that he made, and then so they in turn made their own action. They took their sponsorship away from the Arnold Classic.
Which, before you go on, I just realized yesterday too that the Arnold Classic was this weekend.
Yeah, no, everybody's like that.
What the hell?
I saw Edward Koo. I saw Matt Wyke. I saw several people guess what just happened?
Right. The Ed Koo thing blew my mind.
Right.
Because he basically said, I didn't know until today that the Arnold Classic was today.
Right.
He's somebody who's in the industry. He knows this kind of stuff. And I don't know if you read the comments on that or anything, but some people were saying, well, you apparently just aren't friends with the right people in the industry and this, that, and the other. And he goes, I'm an industry guy. You know that. He's like, I follow, most of the people that I do follow are industry people.
Yeah.
He's like, so for you to say that is ridiculous, for one, but for two, it's just crazy that the Arnold Classic was this weekend. And I didn't see any. Normally, I'll at least see something on Facebook or something about it. The only thing that I really seen was a bunch of bodybuilders weren't able to actually attend this year. Like Rolly Winkler, who's a huge name in the bodybuilding world, he wasn't able to. I don't remember if it was injury or what. Then another big name couldn't make it because of traveling issues and stuff like that too, like big name people. So I don't know. It's just weird. There was not near as much hype around it this year.
Yeah, I did notice that because I don't typically follow it myself. But now that I think about it, it's like I didn't see anything either because usually just knowing the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, your Advice is Radio people and your Ed Koos and Matt Weiss and all that, you just see stuff. And from you just see all that stuff. And I don't remember seeing anything, but I was like, it's not really. I'm not a big as a sport bodybuilding follower. But I was surprised at some of the comments I saw. These guys that were like, "Yeah, that just happened, and I didn't even know about it." So I was thinking, I wonder if that has anything to do with the rest of anything else, as far as the fallout from Arnold and his comments and his political stance,
well, that or like the
or just coronavirus in general.
Like Redcom 1 pulling away from it, like
Right.
maybe they knew that the hype wasn't there this year, and that maybe he assumed that the Arnold Classic wasn't going to make it near as much money as it is,
Maybe.
and it wasn't. I guess it wasn't in their best interest to fund the money or put the money towards it.
Right. Because the rate of
the return on investment isn't
go.
going to be there, like it normally would on a normal year or something along those lines. But and then maybe they just used, the whole thing about what Arnold said as their get out of jail free card kind of thing.
A lot of questions there, but
yeah.
At any rate, other than that, though, I've been seeing a lot of. I shouldn't say a lot. I've seen several different posts of coaches, typically coaches, who are bashing coaches for the information they release, or for their something about how they're not doing their due diligence. They're not, and I'm not going to quote any specifics, but because I only remember one off the top of my head, but I know I've seen at least a couple. If I'm pretty sure I've seen 3 or 4 different posts. I can't say they were for sure from different coaches, but I know there was at least 2 different coaches. At any rate, how much coaches are responsible for like even just putting things online, and it really, I think that you and I have been fortunate, and I'm only fortunate because you have followed the path that you chose, following guys like Scott McNally and Scott Stevenson and Austin Stout, and so we've just kind of I gravitated into that, and I feel like that they have a lot of I don't know. There's just a sense of me trusting them, right? Like I just sense that they are genuine, and that the information they bring forth, that you can trust it because they've pretty much done the scientific method
right
on their information, so you can value it, and you don't have to worry about it so much. Apparently, that's not the case with a lot of other coaches. So there's this question of how responsible are you for what you say and what you show, what you do.
So without giving any names, are you're saying that guys that you respect in the bodybuilding community or the bodybuilding industry, those guys that you respect and that you trust what they say, those are the kinds of guys that you're saying that are calling out other people who...
There was one.
There was one,
There
okay.
was definitely one. That's the one that comes to the top of my head. I've seen others too, though.
Okay.
So it may be a thing, that may be... That's an interesting question that you pose, because it may be somebody who is just trying to bash other people because of whatever their own, agenda is.
Right.
So that's an interesting point. But I just noticed it, and so it kind of gravitates into our next topic about how much are you personally responsible for what you put out there, the information that you put out there, right? So if you, for instance, if you have a business, going back to the coaching for a second, if you are a coach per se, and you are making money, you have profits that you receive from giving other people guidance, information, especially something along the lines of bodybuilding, because it has a lot of implications on your overall health, right? Maybe even more, especially if you're using gear to enhance yourself, kind of enhancing drugs for sports. So those things can have a lot of health consequences on you. I definitely think that's something that you should take some responsibility for as far as the information goes. Are there any consequences as far as legally or something like that? I'm not sure. But the next topic that we have to talk about is not about bodybuilding. It's just about information. It's about commentary, right? So let me give you some story here, some backstory.
Well, can I say something before you do that, though?
Sure.
So there's actually somebody, I'm not going to mention his name, but it's somebody that we have had on the show before, and I think me and you talked about it not too long ago, that he was under fire a month or two ago about comments that he's made on the amount of certain types of gear and stuff that he's put people on, and a lot of people in the industry think that that's outrageous amounts of different things. So I kind of look at it this way: if you're a doctor and you prescribe too much of something to someone and they die, isn't that on you? Like if you're the doctor,
As the doctor,
you prescribe too much to somebody, isn't that on you? Or is that on the person who's taking it to research it and really make their own decision on, should I take this much? You know what I mean? Like if they die, is there legal issues? Can you sue the doctor? Is there, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I understand that a bodybuilding coach might not have an MD by their name, but they're still being paid to give this knowledge and give advice and give like gear and stuff like that, give them amounts that they should be taking and stuff like that. But a lot of people say, well, if you're the person taking the gear, you should be researching. You should be doing your own due diligence on this and not just blaming the coach.
Mm-hmm.
But how is that any different from the doctor scenario, right? Because you're still paying somebody to give you advice and you're taking it, but if you die, you can't blame that coach.
I think the major difference there is that the doctor part.
Right.
The education, for one thing, is very comprehensive, but also because it's you are certified by a board that's I would assume is federally regulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do this certain thing before the government will allow you to be a doctor, a medical doctor of any kind.
Right.
You have to go through that. So therefore, you have a expectancy of responsibility for your practice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are limits with that. You can't go to the doctor, and he says, eat an apple a day, and you keep me away. Well, I've been eating apples, doc, and still here I am. So,
Yeah.
WTH, right?
Right.
There's only so much you can do, but there's a lot of medical malpractice out there. As a matter of fact, it's for some doctors, they're like, it's not even worth it because of all the malpractice lawsuits that come.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much of those get thrown out of court. I don't follow that. With someone like an online coach or with other, what we're about to get into, commentators, there's no board certification as far as I'm aware. There might be some kind of certification for a coach that you want to look for. My understanding is that you don't have to have that to call yourself a coach. Like you can be a coach without necessarily having a certificate of some kind or a degree. Now, if it's me, unless you really know the person and you have a good idea about what they're all about because you built a relationship with them, if I'm just a consumer, I'm looking for the guy who's qualified, who's certified, because that's what I would do with a doctor. That's what I would do with a teacher or a lawyer or whomever. You want to know that they did what they were supposed to do in order to be what they are, right?
Right.
So, but otherwise, it's you getting information, and this person is more like a consultant. They're consulting you on, this is the kind of gear that you could take in order to, to get big, get swole. You might want to take it in this amounts. This is what worked for other people, whatever that conversation sounds like. But really, it's still on you as the consumer, right? At the end of the day, to research it and make sure you are paying attention to what's happening to your body. Make sure you're checking with your on your labs regularly. If there's any kind of abnormality, because you know what you're doing, you're putting this substance into your body. You better be really sensitive to that and not just brush it off because the ramifications could be pretty heavy. Right. And I think that's the big difference for me between the two examples.
Yeah.
And I think the same example goes for this other topic, which is this is a Fox News commentator. His name's Tucker Carlson. I don't think I've ever even seen anything that he's done on Fox News. I don't consume Fox News.
I know I've heard his name a lot, but I couldn't remember who he actually was whenever you told me.
Same. I've heard his name mostly because other people can't stand him because he's a. And a little side note: not too long ago, he was called out. He said something. Someone asked him a question in an interview. Said, "Do you ever lie?" And he said something. I'm paraphrasing here, so don't quote me exactly on this part. But he said something to the extent of, sometimes I lie if it's something really important that needs to be addressed." So it's like, okay. So he admitted that he tells some lies on his show. He's a commentator, though. Okay, and the news, Fox News, and even CNN News, especially MSNBC, they're like the opposite, polar opposite of Fox, right? You got your far right and your far left. They're not really news anymore. They're commentary. Commentary is opinion, basically.
Right.
You take news things, topics, you take things that are current events that are going on, and you put a spin on it because you're playing to your base, right? And so everybody knows that if you are conservative, Republican-ish at least, you're watching Fox News. Everybody knows that if you are liberal and Democrat-ish, then you're going to watch MSNBC or something like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then CNN, in my opinion, is kind of left of middle, but not far. They're like the closest thing that you can still get to. They still have plenty of commentary, don't get me wrong. Still plenty of opinion, which usually leans left. But they have a lot more news than those other two that I already mentioned. At any rate, Tucker Carlson, he's been called out a lot for being like big on the, I guess you could say, the anti-vax side of the coronavirus, the COVID pandemic. So we have a story here in Huff Post, which, if you don't know, Ariana Huffington, it used to be a blog way back in the day. The Huff Post now is a pretty big liberal platform. Been railing on the whole abortion Texas ordeal for a long time now. It's just like inundating with different stories about, people who didn't have an abortion and it was the wrong thing to do. And she really hits a lot of her organization really hits a lot of these stories with, I guess you would call them anecdotal information. So personal stories that are supposed to pull the heartstrings to help you see why leaning this way on a particular policy or topic is important. And it's always left-leaning, which you could expect. This one in particular is about a lady, and it's the title is "Daughter Blames Tucker Carlson's Misinformation for Playing a Role in Dad's COVID-19 Death." So it's about this lady named Katie Lane. Said her father, 45-year-old Boeing designer Patrick Lane, wasn't on the far right politically. He was right in the middle. It's a direct quote. He was right in the middle, and he consumed media from both sides. Now, having said that right there, that sounds like me, because I take media from both sides.
Yep.
Two of my favorite things to listen to on podcasts, as far as politically goes, is Ben Shapiro, who's very, very much on the right side of things, and then David Pakman, the David Pakman Show, which he's very much on the left side of things. I still listen to The Best of the Left. Yeah, I think you remember that show a little bit. I don't really care for so much the trajectory they went down. It's not bad still. They've been doing a lot of stuff on race, which is really good. Anyway, I digress. But he consumed both, so he was kind of a fence sitter when it came to politics, right? And Katie goes on to say, and just some of the misinformation on one of those sides made him hesitant. And so what she's referring to basically is that Tucker Carlson had some videos, and apparently there was some misinformation on the vaccine, and she believes that played a role in her father's death because he went with that information. He stayed vaccine hesitant. He remained questionable, got COVID, died. So the overriding question here is the same. Is Tucker Carlson responsible for his information when it comes to this man's death? 45 years old, just a couple years older than me. Apparently he had no underlying health issues. Politically, fence sitter. He's kind of in the middle. Consumed information from both sides of the media political aisle. What's your thoughts? How much is Tucker Carlson responsible for his words?
I wonder if there's a way for her to get a doctor to say if he was vaccinated, if he would have been fine. Because there's no proof to say that if he did get vaccinated, that he still wouldn't have passed away. We don't know that, right?
You never know for sure. I mean, the statistics lean toward the fact that hospitalizations and especially deaths has decreased for those who've been vaccinated,
right?
Versus those who weren't.
But do we know what, like, if this guy had any underlying issues leading into this? Is what I'm asking.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
So I guess that's where I go with it. Is like I don't know I don't know if he was vaccinated would have changed anything. But I don't know. Well, like I said with you, like, is this like a Tucker Carlson? Is this like a teleprompter type of, I'm reading a teleprompter while I'm like speaking out to all of these people who are listening?
I believe that he's like kind of like a lot like Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity, where it's pretty much their own words. I wouldn't doubt there was a teleprompter involved, but I also think that maybe he and maybe a small team, but he's definitely, they're his words. He's the one that wrote the words down. These are his beliefs. Okay. And I also, it mentioned that this was a YouTube video too, so he does other things. Let's see. He watched some Tucker Carlson videos on YouTube, and some of those videos involved some misinformation about vaccines.
Well, I mean, the big thing is that he consumes this stuff from both sides apparently, and because one side made him hesitant, but it was still his choice in the long run. He could have chose the pro-vaccine side, the information that he's hearing. He could have chosen that and decided to get the vaccine, right? So why is it why is it Tucker Carlson's fault that he didn't get vaccinated because he gave his opinion on the vaccine when somebody else that that this guy's listening to is saying get the vaccine, it will save lives and things like that, but you didn't choose to listen to them. So it's his choice on who he listened to,
right,
and made the choice based off of one or the other,
right.
So it's kind of there's a little bit of a gray area in here, I think, right? I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a gray area just because I kind of understand where she's coming from, but it's also her dad's decision in the end.
So let me start out by saying it's a terrible circumstance.
Absolutely.
To lose your father
Yeah.
at 45 years old. He was young, so she must be probably in her 20s, I would imagine, or younger. Terrible situation, right? Having said that, I don't think it's so gray. I think that Tucker Carlson, it sounds like he's like a primetime a-hole, man. Like somebody I don't even want to listen to.
Yeah.
I consume like information from both sides, but not that kind of information. I can't stand that kind of talk. I want people who talk real just based off of their political philosophy. Sometimes that's on the right, sometimes that's on the left. And then lo and behold, I come to my own conclusion because I have my own brain, right? And I think it's what a lot of people are missing is that, and I don't mean to be insulting to anybody who's listening to this, but if you're listening to this, chances are you've heard us, keep your brains warm, right? That's not just that's a real statement based on a real situation a real activity you should be doing. Like, use your own brain to come up with your own conclusions.
Right.
It sounds like that's what this man did. And it says that he was waiting for FDA approval of the vaccine before he took it. It's just that he got sick before that happened. Okay? Well, waiting for FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, to approve something before you take something, typically wouldn't that be a good idea? Isn't that like doing your due diligence to make sure that whatever was proposed was actually safe and effective and yada yada? And they got the vaccine done with the emergency the emergency rollout. I forget the exact term right now, but to wait for that's a logical thing to do.
But what would happen as far as like FDA approval goes? Is there a way that FDA could have not approved it even after they gave it out to so many people?
I don't think that would ever happen.
I mean,
after they just vaccinated millions of people, it's like, by the way,
right? But that's my point. Is like if you're looking at conspiracies, like there's you got to think there's a back channel of money being funneled that shows that FDA is not going to just let this, not go through.
Yeah.
Because the government can't just say, "Whoops," and and then a bunch of people die or something, and FDA was like, "Oh, nope, we ain't approving this. Nope, that ain't happening."
Right.
So I don't know. I was thinking about that.
Maybe I don't know, but the statistics fortunately show that the vaccine is working for a lot of people, unless the whole thing is just fudged. I mean, if they're just absolutely making up all these numbers, and I think there was some fudging of numbers to a degree, but I have my own anecdotal experience with those who are vaccinated versus those who aren't. And so that notwithstanding, it's still the point of this man made a decision, grown man, and it doesn't say anything about legal consequences for Tucker Carlson. It doesn't say anything about this, and it's not just the fact that it was this Katie Lang, one of those, who lost her father, because that's a Katie Lane, who lost her father. It's very sad. She's mourning. Obviously, you're looking for something or someone to blame, But then the Huff Post picks it up because that's what they do. They pick up this anecdotal information and they use it to drive that emotional response that we've talked about before on the show. And it's the emotional response that's causing so much division, and it's causing people to trash each other, and it's causing this social media shitstorm that's all about us, with people just throwing mud back and forth,
So
slinging,
yeah,
slinging
it's
mud.
just to oppose the other side. That's the only reason it's there.
That's it. And so the HuffPost is using this tragedy, this sad story, which this happens all the time with media. Don't get me wrong, right? But this is just topical on this on this particular story. It's important because my goal is to hopefully help people see what they're doing. You know, use your brain. What is this story really about? What they want you to see is, well, if he would have been vaccinated, then he would have lived. Okay, maybe, maybe not. I mean, there's a chance.
Right.
But now they want you to say, well, it's because Tucker Carlson on Fox News, because he says what he says. That's why this man made the decision that he did. Well, hold on now. This man made a decision. We should stop right there. Right. Should Tucker Carlson have the whatever? I don't know what even how his show looks. I have no idea. Right. But I assume he's on the vax conspiracies, and that he is, coronavirus numbers are being highly, mishandled or just, blatantly lied. We're being blatantly lied to about what's actually going on. I could assume that's probably what he's talking about. Okay, but this man made a decision based off the information. And to say that he saw information on both sides, I think that it even reinforces even more so the fact that this isn't Tucker Carlson's responsibility.
Right. I mean, if you're left and I'm right and somebody listens to our show and I say, jumping into traffic's a good idea, and you say, I don't think jumping into traffic is a good idea, don't do that, that's a bad idea. And then somebody goes and jumps into traffic because they listened to what I said. And then their family tries to say, well, he listened to Colt on the CEP and he decided that jumping into traffic was a good idea because Colt said it.
Yeah.
And now they're going to blame me for it. It's broad, but it's the same concept.
I agree.
They made the decision after listening to both sides. And like you said, he listened to both sides and he came up with his own conclusion. And we don't know for sure if that's what made him pass away. He could have passed away if he took the other route. If he did get vaccinated, we don't know. But in the end, he made his own decision based off of that. And I wonder if this was kind of taken out of context, like how the girl said it in an interview. Like, I wonder if she said it plainly, like, oh, it's Tucker Carlson's fault because he said this and my dad listened to that. Or if it was in a roundabout way said like that, but she didn't really mean that, and then and then that news source just takes off with it and says it's Tucker Carlson's fault because he said it.
Right. I think that's a great point because I could very much see that happening. I don't know. I'm not going to investigate it so far to find out.
Right.
But I could very much see that happening. Like the HuffPost got this interview or heard about this lady who lost her father and maybe did some got some meta information and put together the information based on that, and then concluded that Tucker Carlson is the devil, in fact, and because of his information, this guy died. And so it's just like slinging arrows at Fox News.
And also, somebody could just take what you just said out of context. Like you just said, Tucker Carlson is the devil, and he died, or this guy died because of listening to Tucker Carlson. Somebody could take that out of context and then use that in a news source, and now you're the devil because of what you just said, even though you were talking about the situation, not specifically saying that that's what's happening.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
It could happen at any time.
And it's only going to get worse. You know that, right? Like all the technology that they're coming up with and stuff, like they can take, I've seen this on Rogan at one point, I think, but there's technology out there now where they've taken just different words from different speeches that like people have had in the past. So say Bill Clinton has, 500 speeches. They can take different words out of all those speeches and with technology, put those together to form them saying something else that sounds exactly like they said it.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And scary.
That's why I think it's important, because this real story, because you could just take what I said out of context and think that I'm sticking up for Fox News or Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Not even close to the case.
Yeah.
Not even close. I don't care about Fox News. I don't care about HuffPost. I don't care about either one of them. I really don't care about much of anything as far as those kinds of outlets are concerned, because I don't believe any one thing that I hear.
Yeah.
For me, and I've said this a lot, you've got to go to different sources preferably on two different sides of the argument or the policy or the topic, whatever it is, and come to your own conclusion, because oftentimes the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Not always, and sometimes I come to the conclusion that, actually I think this side over here was right, or this side over here was right, just depending on what I come up with. And I still might be wrong, but I'm still using my brain to come up with my own conclusions. So often I see people who are just regurgitating the same crap that they see. And if you look at the comments on a post like this, oh, well, Tucker Carlson is, in fact, the devil incarnate. And,
right.
And it's because they're speaking in an echo chamber, Although I did see a couple of comments that was a little more cerebral. They were a little more logical. They said, well, this man did make his decision. And although Tucker Carlson is a major douchebag, he's Tucker Carlson, and people know who he is. Right. This reminds me of Alex Jones, man. I loved Alex Jones. I miss Alex. I would love to have had Alex Jones through this pandemic. There's no telling the kind of stuff that.
Right.
I know he's still out there somewhere, but he's not as accessible. And I'm not. I don't have I don't know. I've never really tried to go to the website. Once they shut him down on Apple Podcasts, I just kind of stopped listening. But he came under the same fire. It's like people were like, this information that he's spewing is ridiculous. It's insane. Okay, well, don't listen to it then. And I remember him talking about these what he called coffins, but it was the government had all these just like thousands upon thousands of these cases, and they were they could be big enough to bury humans in. And they just had fields of them, and he didn't know. People were questioning what they were for in conspiracy circles. They looked like they were preparing for a mass death of people, and they were just going to have to bury them in all these little plastic containers because there's going to be so many people. And we used to go down that rabbit hole, and that's when I first started listening to Alex. And I was like, man, this is some crazy stuff. So I started investigating it. Never really came up with a bunch of conclusive information, but it got me to investigate what he was saying. Even Alex Jones, right? Because there's some validity in some of the stuff he's saying. And then there's a lot of stuff that's crazy off the wall.
Yeah. And
that goes with anybody, though. It's not that they are as crazy as Alex Jones. But why don't you investigate and find out for yourself what the information that you hear is all about? Well, people are too lazy. They want to get it from one source. They're either over here listening to Tucker, or they're over here listening to the Huff Post, or they're over here listening to Shapiro, over here listening to Dave Packman.
In a perfect world, you have one person in the middle who's telling you the right thing and just shooting it to you straight. In a perfect world, it's not somebody like Alex Jones who may tell you something that's factual and then go off the deep end and tell you about some crazy conspiracies that you just don't believe there's any possible way that that's actually a thing. That's not a perfect world. And we're so wrapped up in like our culture now is just bang, bang, bang. I want what I want right now. It's just like we read headlines. We don't actually read articles. And then we run off, we take off with just that. We take off with stuff out of context without actually diving into it. And that's where all this shit comes from, and that's why we have situations like this going on.
True.
True.
And, I was thinking about this earlier. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be better nobody believed anything that they heard, right? If they questioned everything, because that's kind of where I'm at. I question everything. But then I thought, man, does life, because I know that's not going to happen. People, for the most part, they fall in line with, all we're doing a lot through this life is looking out for confirmation bias, and that's kind of the path that we take. So I have to think that there's got to be some kind of a reason for having that. There's got to be some kind of utility for confirmation bias. I don't think it's just an aberration in our thinking. I think there had to be some kind of maybe an evolutionary utility to going with what we already think was right and going down that path. And maybe it's just a path of kind of making things a little run more smoothly in our neurological makeup, like when it comes to creating neurons.
Don't you think part of that is like just wanting things right now, and then if we already have an idea of something, anything that confirms that even just a little bit, we run with that because that gives us what we want right now, versus actually having to do the studying and the researching to find something else.
Maybe, but I still think it might be a little deeper than that. I think I don't know why. I don't have any science to back it up. Just, like I said, this was just my own thoughts. I got to thinking about, wouldn't it be easier for that to happen?
Well, what you said a while ago, though, is like, would it be better if people just didn't know anything? Is that how you put it?
No, if they didn't believe anything.
If they didn't believe anything.
Yeah, if they just questioned everything like I do. Like I don't hardly believe anything that like when it's out, like
So-
on the social media or in the media at large. Or
So what would be like? Wouldn't that destroy social media and news websites and all that kind of stuff if nobody believed anything?
maybe
But then there's no news at all.
okay, but is there?
And
I
then
mean,
what? There's no information to even research at that
well,
point.
and that's the thing. I don't know that there would be no news at all. I think maybe it would go back to the way that it should be, where news is news. News should be information about something that's happening.
Yeah.
Mostly what we have now is opinion about what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what journalism ever was supposed to be.
Right.
You know, you weren't, and that's why they had op-ed pieces. That's why they had commentary, and the commentary, the op-ed was just this segment. Back in the day, you know, a lot of you youngsters probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but there used to be this thing called newspapers, right? And the newspaper, especially the Sunday edition of the Post-Dispatch out of St. Louis, was real thick, and a lot of those coupons, things like that. But
Yep.
but you had this real thick information, this thick packet of information that was the news that happened for this week. And a lot of it was local. Then you went national. You also had some world news. And then you had this little segment of commentary, and it was not even close to the front. Well, now I don't know about the Post-Dispatch. I'm not trying to relate to that anymore. But like if you did have a newspaper, I could imagine that the commentary would be the headline.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And maybe the newspapers, I don't know. I don't know who reads newspapers anymore, but just in general, right? I was just using that for an analogy. But in general, the commentary is the news, right? Especially on this 24-hour news cycle that we get from CNN, Fox, MSNBC, just the crap storm of just information. It's opinion based, and it's obviously opinion based. And so you go with the side that proves your confirmation bias. Well, I'm conservative. Fox News is conservative, so I'm going to listen to what they say. And I'm going to act like MSNBC and CNN are just all liars and they're all liberal and they're trying to skew things their way. But because I'm in this echo chamber, this is the truth. And they don't. I don't think they take the time to realize that they are also skewing, to their confirmation bias. I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
But questioning everything, though, I think there still would be news, I would hope. But even if there wasn't, like, what are we getting now? We're getting information that just divides people and skews people. Maybe no news would be better. I don't know. But I got to thinking about it. I thought, would that be better? I don't know that it would. I don't know. I don't think it's possible. I think
Right.
people are always going to seek out their confirmation bias. One of the bad things about confirmation bias for most people is that they don't realize it. They don't realize that they're following their own biases. And that's why they do the things they do or lean one way or the other or believe in the things they believe in, or maybe it's because of the way that the things they believe in is the reason why they skew with information. I think if they took a step back and really thought about it on either side, they'd say, you know what, I think that person's a little messed up.
Or even like really thinking about your beliefs and what you actually believe versus instead of it's like you feel like you don't need to take the time to believe in something because you're just going to take what somebody on the left that's a news source says.
Right.
You don't have to really you believe what they say, and then that's what you tell everybody else. You don't necessarily have to believe one way or the other, right? You can say you do, but you don't necessarily have to. You just are spewing what you heard on that side because most things on that side is what you feel like you believe in, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that because it's such a team sport now, you throw into one team or the other, even though there's some stuff you really don't believe in on this side. But because of other stuff, and you already gravitate toward that way, then you just kind of, it's a whole package deal, Conservatives, for instance, conservatives for a large amount, at least the populace, not necessarily the government themselves, the officials, but they are Christian, oriented. So right now we've got, which is a whole other ball of wax, but we've got this border thing going on in Mexico. And Biden, I believe, is the one who said they can't fly drones down there anymore because they have drone pictures of people living underneath bridges just by the masses. And it goes into the vax thing, too. It's like, are all these people getting vaccinated? And so the argument is the border's open, but the country has been shut down, right? So and we're allowing people who are unvaccinated to still come in. A lot of different arguments can be said there. It's a whole other ball of wax, like I said. But conservatives have this thing, and they get called out for it a lot. The same goes with the abortion issue. But if you care so much about people, right? You're pro-life, and you care about people, and what would Jesus do? That's one of their favorite things to throw back at Christian conservatives. What would Jesus do? Well, these are people that need help, and they're in more of a dire situation than what you are. And shouldn't you help your neighbor? Shouldn't you help those who are less fortunate? And yet they're the ones that are really wanting to put the clamp down on the border, right? And I think it's a contradiction that is easy to fling at Christian conservatives, but I also think it should cause Christian conservatives to stop and think, well, what is the right answer there?
Right.
That's what using your brain's about, instead of just what will happen, though, 9 times out of 10 is they'll just fling more mud back that way. And so it's just this, that's why I call it a sport. It's a big, just like, it's a game to see who can get the mud on the most mud on the other guy.
Right.
As opposed to really trying to
come up with a resolution.
Yeah, chisel down to the real answer to these things. And it's perpetuated by Huff Post. You know what I'm saying? It's perpetuated by Fox News. It's perpetuated by MSNBC. Yep. And people fall into it. And it drives me insane.
And it all comes down to that clickbait thing. Like the more they do that, that's the more that people click on reading, because they, instead of researching, it's just more about, well, let's dive down this and see what they've got to say about the other side. And let's dive down that side and see what they have to say about the other side. We're not coming to a conclusion anywhere or coming to an actual belief on what we actually believe. It's just a matter of, what one side says about the other. It's ridiculous.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is other than, on social media, I can't do it. But I feel like the podcast is one way that if anybody is listening to this, let's try to, use your brains on your own to come up with your own decisions. Just try it. But in order to do that, you got to get out of the echo chamber. You have to. I've been in echo chambers in my life too. I grew up in one. And I think they just happen. I think it's a natural thing. But if you're going to be able to really, really expand on your thinking, you can't just stay in the spot where you're at and expect that to happen with the same information coming to you. You can't just watch Fox News, or you can't just watch MSNBC and expect for you to really be able to critically think about the issues at hand. Right. I've been in the situation when I was a younger man. I was in the situation where I only would watch Fox News, and I would only listen to conservative talk radio. I've been there. I did that for years. I've also been in a situation where I would only listen to Best of the Left podcast. I would only watch CNN. I would only do that. And neither one was better than the other because I was just stuck in that echo chamber. I found the best way to flourish and to be a critical thinker and to keep my brain warm is to listen to both sides. And for me, I don't believe any of them. But that's beside the point. I think everybody's full of crap. Yeah. And if there is a real truth, you're going to have to dig down and find it for yourself because it doesn't exist out there. Right. I don't believe it. I don't believe anything that they're saying. I think there's stuff happening. I think there are people on the border. I think that, I think that a lot of things are downplayed. I think that some things are exaggerated. And I think that goes for everything. And I think that I can think that way about the coronavirus or the COVID. I keep calling it corona. I haven't heard coronavirus in a long time.
Been a while, hasn't
for some reason, it keeps coming out of my mouth. I think that a lot of things were exaggerated in senses. Not that it hasn't been a killer. On that note, I've seen a meme coming back around that's talking about the numbers. And this meme is like at least a year old, I think. Talking about there's only been 3 million deaths for the COVID, and it's got this picture of this person with their eyes are being forced open like this, like that, and it's like in other words, open your eyes. Yeah. Okay, but that meme is about a year old, and the numbers are way outdated. Right. Yeah. So it's happening on both sides. Yeah. They're both sides. They're using a tragedy, a pandemic, to politicize and to fling mud and to ask questions about the other side. I'm just so sick of people falling for it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I'm so sick of not using our brains because I can question COVID. I can question the vaccine. I can question, Fauci, who for some reason has been put up like a god, even though he's changed his mind on things about 20 times. Right. And I can still be realistic about a pandemic that's threatening the lives of those around me because I've seen it happen. Right. And the benefits of the vaccine. I can still do both of those things. But if you talk to people out there especially the social media sphere, most of them think you can't. I'm sure. Do not question Fauci, dude. You will. You get a social media kick in the balls.
I'm sure you have done the same as I have. You've probably unfollowed people who just keep regurgitating a lot of stuff from just like one side, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, stuff that not necessarily you don't believe, you just get tired of just seeing it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anybody on your social media that you just haven't, you've thought about unfollowing, but you just haven't yet because like half the time it's regurgitating bullcrap, but sometimes they put out something that you actually are interested in, or they promote something that you're interested in or something like that? Do you have anybody like that?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Because I have people that are just a train wreck that I
Mhm.
keep on my social media stream just
Yeah.
because I like watching the train wreck.
Yeah.
But I think so. I think they're like you're saying, there's probably somebody who spits out enough good information that keeps me from like
Well,
making them disappear.
Yeah, I just every once in a while I see somebody that comes on my page and like they're one day they're up, one day they're down, one day they're regurgitating it's just stupid stuff, and it's just like I see them every once in a while. I'm like, why haven't I unfollowed you yet?
Right.
And the next day they post something, and I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of interested in that, so maybe I shouldn't unfollow them. And it's just like like once a month, I just see them. I'm like, I got to get rid of you. And then, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't, because you do say something smart every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wondered if you had anybody like that, like just people that are like up and down, or people who are like, you know, even down to people who are like, oh, dude, I'm doing keto and I'm gonna be hardcore about it, and then like the next week they're out shoving their face with donuts on social media and stuff, and I'm like, do you not remember, you know, like you tried to make yourself accountable because you use social media
Right.
as the tool to make you accountable for doing something, but then you just gave up on it and acting like the thousands of people that follow you aren't going to notice that you just stopped doing it. And then that's how people are going to look at you. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you care about how people look at you or anything like that, that's another thing too. But it's just a matter of, you know, if you constantly try to use social media as something that makes you accountable for something, but you constantly, it doesn't take long to not be accountable for it anymore, people are going to see that, and they're not going to believe you whenever you post something on social media that's trying to make you accountable for it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I see that all the time.
That's why I'm so glad that I didn't get Facebook and all that stuff, because it wasn't around when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So glad I was older, because I just can't imagine. But the people you're talking about, though, they're not necessarily younger. Some of them are older.
Yeah.
They're just that kind of people. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know why you would. I mean, I get the accountability thing. Like whether you're like trying to go on a diet or stop smoking cigarettes, stop drinking, something like that. When you tell people it's a new level,
Yeah.
you know, because then you feel like you're being held accountable because you told them you were going to do it, and you don't want to be a liar, you don't want to be a disappointment or whatever.
Yeah, but then again, how often is somebody who, you know, say today I say I'm going to quit smoking, and then next week I post a picture and I got a cigarette in my hand.
Right.
Who's gonna pop up on your comment section and say, I thought you said you quit smoking? Nobody's gonna do that because you don't want to make them feel bad, you know. But
Some people probably will. But
well, I guess yeah.
I don't think it's about that though. I think it's more of an internal psychological effect
Yeah.
that you have, because even in real life, you know, I think a lot of people aren't going to really call you out necessarily. You're going to have some friends who're like, hey, dude, I thought you were going to stop eating donuts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, but you know, whatever. It's just the fact that you know you told them.
Yeah.
I think, because I've used that myself when I was going to quit something in my life. You know, I'd be like, I would be internalized. I would internalize the concept, like, okay, I'm gonna quit, but I knew because I probably had made the mistake before, but I knew I wasn't going to tell anybody yet until I knew for sure that I was going
Right.
to quit, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to have that accountability on me yet,
Right.
because I knew I wasn't going to be able to withstand the fallout from the lack of accountability once I started doing it again. So I would wait till I knew for sure. I was like, I'm not going to say this until I know for sure that I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow through
Which
with
a
it.
lot of people don't do that. They just automatically think that,
Yeah.
you know, for one, they're craving the attention that they know they're going to get when they post it on social media, that I'm going to quit this because this is a bad
True.
decision in the first place, or, you know, a bad habit or something like that. They're craving that,
Yeah.
you know, but I don't know. I think it's, I just think it's funny. Why not just not say anything and
Just
do it
do
on
it.
your own? But a lot of people need or feel like they need that validation from other people to, yeah, you go get it. You can do this. You can do this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then apparently in a month, and when you've gone back to doing it again, it's just like, oh, well, life is life again. You know, I'm just doing these things, and nobody's going to talk about it. So, you know,
They got that dopamine hit from all those likes,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. And that's probably the main driver. I mean, these social media developers, they're not just making cool tech. They're analyzing and researching and testing, experimenting with human physiology.
Right.
Dopamine is a big thing they've studied,
Yeah.
and focus and attention time. So they know what they're doing when they do it. But back on that note, really quickly, I've seen some people who have posted like it's been a year since I've drank, and they get all kinds of accolades. And I think that's a good thing. I think that kind of reinforcement is important because because a lot of things get praised in our society. A lot of celebrity worship that for the most part drives me insane in a lot of ways. But other things like I don't know, just sexy bodies and big muscles and things like that, which all that's cool except for the celebrity worship. I can't stand that. But the rest of it's kind of cool. But when someone actually makes a change and sticks to it, and a year later they're like, "Hey, I did this thing." If there's anything that should be praised, it probably is that, because I see that being a good thing. That's different than the people that you're talking about who, they had a rough night, or maybe it's been a week, and they're saying, okay, now I'm done with it, I quit, and then of course they get back in that cycle, and that's I would think that that's even more detrimental than anything, because it just perpetuates the cycle of that, because they don't, if they weren't moved by the accountable. That component of what they just did, if the accountability didn't cause them to not go back to that thing that they were trying to quit in the first place, then that's not a good sign.
I think people are more mentally tough that instead of doing the original post that says, this is what I'm going to do, it's more of put it in your mind that you're going to do it, and then once you've done it, then post it on social media and say, I told myself 3 months ago I was going to lose 50 pounds, and here's my before and after picture to show that I lost 50 pounds. Then go for those likes and everything, and then use that as motivation to keep pushing you forward. But you did it on your own. You didn't have to have the original post, because I think you could be setting yourself up for failure. Because if you make a post, you say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months, then you're shoving donuts in your face for that 3 months. And then people realize that you haven't done it. And then now you're looking bad. You feel bad about yourself because you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Right.
When you should have just told yourself you were going to do it, and then tell people that you did it.
Yeah. Now you're remorseful, so you're going to eat 24 donuts because you feel like shit.
Right. Yeah.
Donuts make you feel better. And I will attest to that. They do.
Yeah. But like you said earlier, you always make yourself like it's a guarantee that this is going to happen before you actually post it on, social media. And I'm that way too. Like every once in a while, if there's something I say I'm going to do, I think about posting it on social media, and I'm like, is there any possible way that I'm not going to do this?
Right.
Because if there is, I don't want people looking at me like you said you were going to do it and you didn't.
Right.
So I don't, and then I don't post it.
Yep.
So.
Yep, exactly. And I think though that, on a final note, the people who I can attest this to myself as well, and this is pre-social media, but the people, because I don't post anything like that on social media. I just don't find that's the platform for me to. It's not real, Anyway, the people who don't post anything and just do it, the thing that they're trying to do, those are the people that are the most likely to actually get that thing done, in the first place.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to, and this is kind of just wrapping up what we've been talking about, but the fact that you feel like you have to post it, and I think like what you said earlier, that you're looking to get that motivation from other people around you instead of internalizing that motivation and just doing it.
Yeah.
I think that is an indication that at least a majority of the time, I would say even probably up to 90%, you're not going to be the one to do it in the first place. It's not going to happen because you don't have that internal motivation, and you have to have that because
right. Yeah. You need to know that the validation for, like, you shouldn't need the validation from other people to make a goal and achieve it.
Yeah.
It's great to have it, and it's great to have people rooting you on and stuff like that. But if you need somebody, if you know you need to quit smoking, but you need other people to cheer you on to do it, that's not necessarily healthy. That's not a good thing. I think social media has perpetuated that a lot.
Yeah.
And people need the likes, they need the comments, they need the shares, and all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily a healthy way of life. If you know you need to achieve a goal, set it, get all your ducks in a row, achieve it. Let people, if you want to let people know you did it, that's great. But don't have to have people tell you you're doing a great job to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation's great, but if you have to have it, that's not necessarily a healthy thing.
Yeah, I would argue that's not even true motivation.
Right.
And I might be, I don't know. There might be an argument against that, but I would argue personally that true motivation has to come from within, at least a majority of it, or else it doesn't last. It's not durable. Like you always have you, right? You always have your inside, and your motivation should come from there. Because if my motivation comes from Colt, and Colt's too busy to motivate me one day or for 1 week or whatever, then I've got no motivation then.
Right.
So the chances of me being able to finish whatever it is that I'm trying to do it just dropped into the basement because I didn't have that internal motivation in the first place. And so that external, I think validation is a great word for that as opposed to motivation. You're trying to use validation this would be a great topic, by the way. We gotta close out, but validation is replacing motivation for those people. So they don't really have motivation per se. They have validation, or they're seeking validation. And without that validation, when that fails or when it doesn't pan out, then there's nothing left because they didn't internalize the true spark, the true fuel that they needed in order to accomplish that task.
Right.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's
We
good.
definitely got to talk. We got to dive into that a little deeper.
Motivation versus validation. Look for it on an upcoming episode of the CEP. But as for now, we got to go work out.
Absolutely.
So
Leg day, dude.
Good stuff. Episode 200 coming up soon.
So last week we dropped 198, right? So this week will be 199. And so this is episode 200.
Well, it is maybe, unless we can figure out something a little more saucy to use for episode 200. But
See what we can come up with.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.